my name is Shannon and this is my mentor, Jen McFinn.
And as sci-fi fantasy writers, we found one topic that engaged us both was alien abduction. So for this piece, we chose to set the scene in our own backyard of New York City. That's yours. I'll read mine. The buildings were so unbelievably high there. I tripped as I walked down 42nd Street, craning my neck to catch every bit of neon light in my starstruck eyes. I meandered off a curb, taking a few steps to catch my balance without breaking my upward stare. A brash beep alerted me to the roadkill conclusion that my life had narrowly missed. "Look out, you fuzzy bunny," the taxi driver shouted. What he actually shouted contained more syllables, but the closest sensical phrase I could make out was fuzzy bunny. "Hey," I shouted, slamming both hands on the hood. "I'm walking here." A stupid toothy grin plastered itself across my face. The taxi engine revved up as the tires squealed. "You put a dent in my fuzzy car. I'm gonna fuzzy run your ass over." He jumped out of the way as he tore across the road. The CSI in me, don't you just love that show? Took a look over my left shoulder to catch what I could of the license plate number, which was quickly minimizing like a Facebook window at work. But before I could make out even one letter, a large flat circle blocked out the sky, and the world turned ash gray. I jerked around to see the beloved landmarks that had surrounded me seconds earlier, but Toys R Us and MTV alike were obliterated by this fog, thick enough that I couldn't tell if it was in my eyes or all around. Was this the work of a pickpocket? My arm clamped down instinctively on my new Chinatown Foch bag. My feet left the ground. This was probably a joke they played on tourists, I told myself as I floated where the 2010 ball should have been. I woke up cradled in the arms of a man who laid me down on a surgical gurney. Upon closer inspection, he wasn't a man. He was about 4 feet tall, not to mention olive green and vaguely slimy looking. I drew the line. This wasn't a joke. I was neither laughed at nor with. I cracked my knuckles and wiggled my toes like I always did when I was afraid. The upper part of my arm ached like someone had driven a pole through it, and it was thickly bandaged. The slime midget wobbled away, thank goodness, and it was only then that I noticed the teenage girl sitting 2 gurneys away from mine. Gurney proximity seemed as good a basis for fear-fueled friendship as any. I wondered if she had been wandering in Times Square too. "I'm Asia," she said. "I'm Mandy," I replied.
Asia could barely open her eyes. The light was blinding. She squinted as her vision came back into focus. She felt the cold steel of an operating table underneath her body. She moved her arms to see if she was strapped down, but to her surprise, she was free. She sat up and looked around. She became scared, confused, and worried. She didn't recognize any of her surroundings. The room's walls were made up of white tiles. It looked exactly like something she had seen in one of her many sci-fi comics. There were no windows in the room either, just a door. The door had the tiniest little window that was covered with a slab of painted white metal that could be slid open and closed from the outside. She didn't remember how she had gotten there. All she remembered was her walking down the shoreline of Jones Beach, and then she saw it. A huge round saucer floating above her, and then she blacked out. She had been captured by something. Her heartbeat sped up as she jumped off the operating table and made her way to the door. She was barefoot, and the floor was icy cold. The handle of the door was made of steel and was bolted shut by 2 kinds of heavy-duty locks and a hand scanner. She ignored them completely and tried to pull the door open, a wasted effort. The door swung open on its own, and in walked 2 hideous creatures, aliens. Then she remembered everything. She had been abducted. The creatures looked horrible with their green slimy skin, huge black eyes, and long bony fingers. One of them had a long, painful-looking syringe in its hand, while the other stood close by the door. The alien with the syringe looked angry. He pointed his bony finger towards the operating table and spoke in a weird, high-pitched language. She couldn't understand him, but she knew what he meant, and she walked back to the operating table. As she hoisted herself back onto the table, she felt a soreness in her arm. She looked and saw that she had already been injected with something. It was covered by a Band-Aid. Was she poisoned? The alien by the door stepped out for a moment, and seconds later he returned with another operating table with another girl on it. She was free, just like her, but she looked pale and confused. She caught a glimpse of the bandage on her arm. She had been injected too. The aliens left the room. It was silent for a moment. The girls looked at each other. They realized that they were both in the same problem now. The girl on the operating table sat up slowly as Asia approached her. "I'm Asia," she said to the girl on the table. I'm Mandy. They shook hands and smiled nervously, both not knowing what lay ahead of them.